You're listening to Deliberate Living, a podcast that inspires, empowers, and encourages listeners to live life more authentically. My name is Holly Priestley, and I'm a full-time nomad who has been living in my 1997 Ford van for more than a year. I travel the United States with my dog, learning how to live with more authenticity. I explore different ways people choose to ditch the prescribed life we've all been sold and live on their terms, finding freedom and happiness however they choose. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Deliberate Living. I am your host, Holly Priestley, and my guest today is Nikki Rothschild. She is a 29-year-old woman who has been living in her van now for 2 years. She first moved into her van after a serious battle with her health, and she imagined that van life would give her the freedom that she'd been craving, and it has absolutely done that for her. Living in the van has taught her the importance of staying present in the moment, living with less, and learning to flow with the unknowns. It's allowed her to change her scenery with her mood, but it also forces her to grapple with her emotions as they come up. Living in a van is 100% not easy, but the payoff is totally worth it. So hello, Nikki.
Hi.
You want to tell our guests a little bit about your background and where you came from?
Yeah, so I grew up in Southern California, and I am the oldest of three kids, and I was diagnosed at a pretty young age with a neurological disease, and it kind of defined me for a long time. And when I was 24, my health just took like a massive dive, and after coming pretty close to death, and really being, encountered with the four walls of my bedroom or hospital walls only, I really wanted to take life by the seat of its pants, if you will, and really push my boundaries and kind of live in the moment. And so that's kind of where my dream for van life was born.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that everybody says is, if you were on your deathbed, would you regret, anything in life, or what would you do differently? And usually that question, doesn't come about until we're ideally a ripe old age. And,
right.
It's not very often that you're 24 and you get to experience like a shift like that, where you get to kind of make those really tough decisions and come face to face with your mortality, and then also being confined to a bedroom or a hospital room for an extended period of time too. I mean, that sounds horrendous.
Yeah, it was horrendous. It was awful. But I think I'm at a point now where I'm really grateful for the experience I had, because it's allowed me to have the life I do now. And so from that standpoint, I try to make everything I went through worth it. And it's not even necessarily that I was like, oh man, and there's all these things I didn't get to do and I regret it. It was more so like, if I had the chance to live, I'm never going to let it pass me by. And so, yeah.
I think that's awesome. So that was about when you were 24, you're 29 now, you've been in the van for 2 years. So doing some quick math, it took you a few years to actually move into the van after that experience?
No, actually, because my health issues were kind of from 24 to 27.
Okay.
And so the 2 years I've been in the van are legitimately like right up against that. So like I learned how to walk 5 months before I was in the van. I learned how to eat again 2 months before I was in the van. So really there was no, it was, it was like the minute I was sustainable, like I could take care of myself, I was gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you made that transition from having to learn how to walk and eat and take care of yourself, was there ever a moment, before you officially moved into the van where you were like, no, maybe I shouldn't do this. I really want to do this. I'm a little afraid of it. Like, no,
not leading up to it. I would say maybe like after the first month, I was just like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
Like, this is crazy. And I was just like, this makes no sense. And I wasn't at the point where I was like enjoying it yet. I was still just like what am I doing? This is hard. And so like at that point, but like I had promised myself I'd give it like 3 or 4 months. And if I didn't like it, like I was just like, I haven't lost anything. I built out a van and I got on the road. Like I didn't feel like I'd lost anything if I'd given up, but yeah, that never happened.
Have you had your dog the whole time in the van with you?
So actually I started, like my first trip was like a month and a half and I went solo. And then I kind of went back to my parents and I took our family dog who was kind of there the entire time I was sick, and he kind of became my service dog in a lot of ways. So it was like fitting that he joined me. And he lived out the rest of his life with me on the road. I took him back about 4 months before he passed away. I just like knew he wasn't happy on the road anymore.
Yeah.
And he just like wasn't able to keep up, and like the heat and everything, like it just wasn't fair to him anymore. And so I brought him back to my parents. He passed away. But before I brought him back to my parents, I started kind of caravanning with my best friend, and she had her dog. And after a year of us traveling together nonstop, she became my dog. And then we got another dog. So we have 2 dogs between the 2 of us. And when one person is somewhere where a dog can't go, the other one gets custody kind of. And so it works out really well, because it's like there are things that you want to do that like a dog can't come.
I want van neighbors who share dogs. And I mean, I travel with my dog full time, you know, from the get-go. I've been with her since she was, you know, a friggin' bag of bones, 6-week-old puppy. And yeah, like I don't have a national parks pass because it doesn't make sense for me to have one, because I can't take her with me.
Right.
And to your point earlier about, you know, your other dog not being able to deal with living in a van, like in the summertime, it gets hot in the van. You have to find other ways to do things. And yeah, it can be a huge challenge. I would love to have somebody around who's just like, here, you take the dogs for the day.
No, it's great. And it works out really well. And it also allows us for us to do like international travel and stuff, and things where like dogs are like, you can't bring a dog. And so both of us kind of orient our travel around the dogs. So other than like, you know, if I want to climb at Joshua Tree, like I'm not going to take the dogs, so she'll have the dogs. But yeah, it works out really, really well. And we both kind of get a break from that responsibility as well. Which is nice. At times you just want to be like, I don't want to have to worry about the animal that's baking in the car. Because it's hard to know that like, okay, it's been 30 minutes. I got to go check. I got to make sure they're cool or whatever. And so kind of having that shared responsibility is really nice.
Yeah, no kidding. When you were that first month, and you know the time that you spent building out the van before you moved into it, how did your family react to that? After, I mean, they'd seen you be really sick and cared for you in some ways, and then you're like, all right, I'm shucking off all of my constraints, getting into the van.
Well, I think for me, I kind of went about it like, I'm better and I'm not going to let life pass me by. Like the minute I have a moment where I'm like, because it was gradual from the standpoint that like I didn't just wake up and I was cured. Like it was like a little bit better every day. Like it was instantaneous looking back on it, but really it was a progression. And so, and I really didn't share, even though I was living with my family at the time, I didn't share with them what was happening. So I made that transition kind of without them knowing, in the sense that like I didn't tell them I wasn't using my wheelchair anymore. And so like one day my mom just saw me like walk by and she was like, what are you doing? Like, you're going to get hurt. And so it was like that kind of stuff that like, and the reason I didn't tell them is I couldn't at that point, I didn't have the strength to let their doubt kind of inflict onto me. And so I really didn't give them the option even about the van until 2 days before I bought it. And I was like they knew I was selling after the point where I was walking regularly and I sold all my wheelchairs and other medical equipment. Like they knew that was happening. They knew I wanted to move out. They knew I didn't have money to move out. So there was like a lot of different components. And one day I was like, so there's a van I saw on Craigslist. I've researched, I've set up an appointment for a mechanic. I just need someone to drive me because I'm going to buy it. And they thought it was all talk. I mean, like even, you know, the week leading up to it, they're like, you're not going to actually do this. And that's kind of what it was the whole time, is they're like, it's fine because she's not really going to go through with it.
Yeah. My family's done that to me before.
Yeah. So once, like, even after I took the first trip, I think they were kind of like, she's not going to stick with it. Like, it was a fun experiment and it'll be a nice story to tell. And it would have been fine if that's where I left it. But yeah, they definitely wanted to just kind of wrap me up in bubble wrap, and um, it would have been a lot easier for them probably emotionally if I didn't go out and do the things I did, but the things I went out and did has kept me healthy. So in the long run, you know, it is a trade-off. Like, they have to deal with the fears of, like, is she going to get hurt while she's doing this? Will that set her back? But also, by me staying healthy, they don't have to deal with that. So it's a trade-off.
I love that. I think that is so interesting and powerful and true. I know, like, speaking from my story only, right? That you didn't want to say anything because you couldn't let somebody else's doubts impact you in that way. And I think that that's really smart of you to have known that about yourself, and then to have not given them the opportunity to have shifted your goals. Now that it's been 2 years, are they still kind of worried about you? Like, every time you post a picture of climbing or doing anything, do you think they get,
climbing? Yes. They hate climbing. Like, they could do without me going climbing. Backpacking, they've gotten used to it. Me being off grid for a long period of time, they've gotten used to it. They don't love it. My dad is super, super supportive. He totally gets it. And he kind of did this thing when I was my age too, where he just, like, traveled and didn't talk to anybody and stuff like that. So he kind of gets it. I think my mom would prefer I'm, like, done with it at this point.
Yeah.
And I think it's been hard on my family, especially with what's going on with the pandemic. They were both like, come home. And I just, had to say, like, I need to keep doing what's best for me, even if not especially during this time.
Yeah. And where is home for you?
Southern California.
Oh, right. Sorry. You said that. I forgot. So how has the pandemic affected you specifically?
I mean, it led to me losing the job I was working at. I typically do, like, a 3 months on, 3 months off type thing. And so most recently I was nannying, and the position didn't work out a lot because of the pandemic. And so after that, when parks started closing and everything, it was really hard to stay in San Francisco. So then I knew the option was either to head to someone's house or to stay in the middle of nowhere. And both really have their huge pros and cons. I had been in San Francisco, so all the people I'm exposed to, do I want to bring it to those remote areas and counties and stuff like that? And I was really sick while I was in San Francisco, and I don't think I had COVID, but it's a possibility. And, like, I wasn't going to use the resources to get tested to find out because I was okay.
Yeah.
And so that went into the play too. Is like, we can't stop in these small, tiny towns and expose other people when COVID hasn't gone through them yet. And so we chose the next best thing. And by we, I traveled with my best friend. And so we decided to come to Texas, where she has family, and we were going to be able to isolate in a separate part of the house, separate bathroom, separate everything for 2 weeks, just to make sure. And, the whole drive here, it was like wiping down gas stations before and after, just being really cautious. Things like you don't think about, like rest stops and stuff, and every door handle you open. And so we really took time, and we came here as fast as we could. So we really didn't, camp on our way here, make it a fun road trip. And it's been great being here. It's been nice to have access to a bedroom if we want it, and 4 walls and a bathroom and a shower and an oven. It's been nice.
Yeah.
But
how long have you been out?
about a month. I've been staying in the house. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm in Texas heat. So as it's getting hotter, it's just, like, not feasible at this point, and we're standing still, and there's the space. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any idea when you'll get back on the road? Like, does it depend on when Texas lets things open back up, or what is?
So Texas is open, which is scary. The plan at this point, because, like, my work kind of got interrupted, I still need to go work again. So the plan is, once California kind of reopens, that's when I'll head back to California. So I'm hoping in the next month, things will start to shift, and I know that'll be temporary before things kind of wrap up again this way. So I'm hoping to have enough money to be able to write out the next season of this.
Yeah, I think that's smart, and it sounds like you guys made a really smart decision.
Yeah.
Over the last 2 years of living in the van and having this 3 months on, 3 months off, and not letting life pass you by, like, what do you think have been the biggest pros and cons for you doing this lifestyle?
I think cons would be like, I don't have the certainty, like, I don't have passive income coming in. I don't have any assurance if something happens and I break and I need my money faster than I allotted, that means I have to go to work sooner. So like some people are really into having like kind of a security belt of money, or they work while they travel, different styles. But for me, almost everything is uncertain. And so that, I think, I've talked to a lot of other van lifers, that there's definitely like a decision fatigue that happens where you're like, I just don't want to make another decision. Like if I do nothing else today, I just want to not make a decision. And because it's everything. It's when am I going to get water? When am I going to get food? How far off grid can I go? Am I going to need a phone call? And so I think that really does start to wear on me. And that's when I start to think like, it would be really nice to take a year off and then come back to this. But that's hard too, because, the cost of moving in places and buying furniture and like that kind of stuff it's a lot. So it's I would say those are the cons.
Yeah. One thing
in the van is pretty rough.
Yeah. One thing that I say all the time is that living in the van has eliminated the complicated parts of life, like figuring out how to pay rent or buy furniture or repair the appliance that broke. You don't have to do any of that, but it has made all of the simple things a lot more complicated. Like you can't just turn on a faucet and have water, or flip on a switch and have a light. Like it's rainy and dark here today, and so my batteries are not charging, and so I'm using like an extra battery powered light to illuminate so that I'm not grainy over here. Like it's just little things like that, or like charging your phone or your laptop, or making sure you know what temperature it is for the dog.
Yeah,
definitely complicated.
Yeah, and I think those are the times when I'm grateful to be able to take a break from it. But yeah, I mean, for me at this point, still the pros definitely outweigh the cons, because I have that freedom to go where I want, when I want. And I think I find myself, because there's less things to be distracted by, and the things I'm distracted by are all the important things and necessities, I find myself sitting in a place of gratitude more often than not, because I'm not distracted by like the jeans somebody's wearing or what I could fill my house with or whatever. And so that for me is a big pro, is that like, it's hard though, right? Like I think it's so vastly different from people with jobs, because it's like you wake up every day and you know what you have to do. And you don't get a choice in the matter. And we're taught, I mean, from the time we're in school, you have like a prescription for your day. And so that's so vastly different when you're on the road and you're like, wow, I have 16 hours. How am I going to fill it, or whatever. And so, when you're really making every choice every second, that is tiring. It's also empowering.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think that's a really strong sentiment, that it's exhausting and empowering. And sometimes being empowered means you also need to take a nap, but that you can decide to take a nap.
Yeah. And to not feel guilty about that, because I think that's also something I'm like, I shouldn't watch Netflix, or I shouldn't take a nap. I'm in this really beautiful place and I'm not taking advantage of it. But that's part of like being in tune with your body and how you're feeling and all of that, which is part of what keeps me healthy. So yeah, it's a balance.
I feel one of the things that feels the most luxurious to me, air quotes, and makes me like feel really guilty about doing it, is like reading. Like reading
interesting.
Makes me feel like so decadent, but I also don't do it very often, because I'm like, oh, I should be working on something. I should be being productive. I should be cleaning or, XYZ thing. but when I sit down and I read a book, like I can get lost for hours. And that is like one of the biggest, and like you don't need cell service for that.
Yeah.
Definitely one of my biggest joys. You've spoken a lot about the seasons of working for you and how that relates to your travel choices and your recreation and where you choose to set up camp for a while. I would like to go a little bit deeper into that and, you know, ask you like what kinds of jobs, like is it always nannying for a few months, or what have you done to like make this a sustainable life for you?
Nannying is where I can make the most money.
Mm-hmm.
So more than not, that's what I choose to do, especially in places like San Francisco, and then not having to deal with the cost of rent is kind of like a win-win because they pay better there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really able to take advantage of the higher cost of living, if that makes sense, and make more money quickly. And it's great for like summer because it's not too hot. Like I'm missing out on summer travel, but it's not too hot. Kids are out. Parents need help.
And then it's just that instant because they go back to school.
Exactly. And so there's no guilt in that. Or like sometimes new moms just want help, or they've added a sibling, and so they just want help for a few months. And so I don't have to worry about the commitment. And sometimes, like this last job I took, I really took it with the intention of it turning into something longer because they ultimately wanted to live in. And so I was like, that would be a really nice way to take a break from van life without having to invest in an apartment, and then go back on the road in a year. And it didn't end up working out. But so sometimes there is definitely, you know, like I'm willing to make the longer term commitment. And then I also worked as a backpacking trip guide for a summer camp. And that was a really, really great experience. I absolutely loved guiding.
That's amazing.
It was incredible. I loved it. It was a lot of work, very little sleep, and really, really bad pay.
Yeah.
so I would do it again, but it's not something that necessarily like makes money for me to travel longer. It's more like my ends are being met during that period of time because I'm not spending money elsewhere, but it's like a break even at the end of it. I'm like, that was and I went into it knowing like this will be an experience. I'm not going to make money from this. So in the future and I worked at a summer camp, so that's part of the problem. Like you can definitely make money if you're guiding for like for-profit companies and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really interesting. One thing that I say all the time is that like life on the road, life in a van, life in a backpack can be as expensive or as inexpensive as you want it to be within reason. Yeah. I mean, as far as inexpensive goes, like you still need to pay for your insurance, even if you're not driving. So you always get something you have to pay for. But I know a lot of people who van with full-time jobs, and I know a lot of people who van with part-time seasonal work, and there's huge pros and cons to both. And I think the most important thing is finding what works for you, your mindset, your personality, your needs. And why not experiment?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, a 3-month gig, a 3-month gig.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's been fun to kind of just be like, oh, this isn't a forever career, but why not try it? And I've enjoyed that. And it also can, you know, part of being a part of seasonal work means I get to kind of live in a place versus like visit it. So that's nice too.
Yeah, that's a huge point right there for sure. Speaking of, you know, careers and that sort of thing, do you have any future plans beyond COVID once it's all done and we're all back to normal?
I have so many plans. It's just about which one. I mean, my friend and I always joke that like we can plan all we want, but ultimately life's going to take its course.
Life
and so yeah, exactly. And my life is not one to follow plans, but likely and the easiest thing would be to go back to San Francisco during this time. And so that's probably what the next move is going to be. I would like to spend some time in Oregon before it gets too cold. And other than that, like I'm working on a lot of passion projects, but they're not necessarily making money at this point. And so it would be nice if one of those did start making money and that kind of became my source of income. But as of now, you know, I'm still relying on outside sources for money.
Yeah, absolutely. I noticed a few months ago you started making you started editing little like video clips of your hikes and your yoga and your day,
Yeah.
putting it to music, and those were always some of my favorite things. It was like, oh, this is so cool. This is like 6 stories in one, and there's music, and it's pretty. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I have, thank you. I have a lot of fun editing those little videos, and it feels like an easy way for me to be able to share what I'm experiencing with other people, not from the sense of like, oh, look how jealous you should be, but more so like, and I was reminded of this very recently, is that, you know, our location is an outside factor in our personal and emotional well-being.
Mm-hmm.
And I have the ability to change that, but also my emotions and my feelings and everything are not dependent on that. And so, like, of course it's easy to be grateful when you're in nature and everything's amazing, but also, like if I can share that with somebody and that inspires that within themselves, then, you know, that makes me happy.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's amazing. And I think that that's like the best use of social media is, you know, to share what you're doing so that other people can see that it's possible to do other things,
Mm-hmm.
and not just
Yeah.
prescription, like you said, that we've had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think so much of van life, I guess life in general, is like fake it till you make it, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think with like the Instagram stories, I really embrace it. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm saying, but I'm going to pretend like I do, and people are going to like it.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I get too self-conscious. I use Instagram as like a personal creative almost daily thing. I'm like, I want to make something. So for me that's writing. So I try to write captions that make you think about something. But when I find that like I'm pulling out my phone every 3 minutes to see like what's new or if anybody has posted anything else, then I'm like, okay, you have to put this away. This is not. But then when it comes to stories, I get like, I know so many people who say like, oh, the stories is like practice because it goes away. Like you can do whatever you want. It's so dumb. Like you don't have to like not dumb in a bad way, just dumb in like a
Yeah.
in an easy, casual way. And I get like so self-conscious when I do them. I'm like, you just need to get over that and just put it out there anyway and see what happens.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's challenging though, because there's a different like flow for stories than there is for like a post.
Yeah.
And so at times like I there is a difference, and so sometimes I'm like, oh, this is more of a post feeling than a story feeling, or vice versa.
Yeah. I agree. Do you have any advice that you would give someone who's considering, you know, breaking free of the prescription and either, you know, moving into a van and getting on the road or just in some other way changing up their life?
I think I definitely think it's hard because I think everyone's roadblocks are different, but I think for me, it's like you can do it with what you have. Like, you know, if you have a sedan, like you can do it in that and try it. Like, make sure you like it, because it's not for everybody. It's not for the faint of heart. It is hard, so rewarding, but it is. It's hard, and so like, you know, take a few months in tent camp out of the back of your sedan. Like, it's the lifestyle that gives you the freedom, and for some people, they only need like a taste of it. And I think part of what I've noticed in van life right now is like there's such a, because it's such like a trendy thing, there's like the best vans and having the best setups and the best everything like that. And it's like after moving into my van, I don't know how many times I'd said I'd redo my van, but like there are constantly things that are broken, and I'm like, I need to fix that, but I don't, because ultimately it works. And it's like you can let the things that you don't have kind of obsess your mind, like just be obsessed with it and stop you from actually doing it, and be like, well, you know, when I have this much money, when I have this car, when I have, you know, the fridge and A, B, and C, and it's like, just go. I really think that's like, that is the best advice. And like, yeah, like it's nicer to have a van than a Jeep, than a sedan, than, you know, but like you said, you can spend as little or as much as you want, and waiting for the perfect van. Like if you're doing van life to be comfy, like van life may not be for you. Because even people with the nicest setups, like at the end of the day, like if you're in the middle of nowhere, you're digging a hole, like, or you're using a black tank, like either way, it's not glamorous. So
Yeah.
like why wait for the nicest setup? And, unless you have that, then like by all means, like go for it, do it. Buy the setup, definitely. But yeah, I think like if you're trying to get like luxurious about it, like at the end of the day, we're all doing the same thing.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like you can make your van as plush as you want. At the end of the day, it's still a van. It's still, maybe 6 or 8 feet wide, depending, and maybe 10 to 12 feet long. Like it's still a van.
Yeah, you're still in a car, and like we can glamorize it, and Instagram helps with that. But like at the end of the day, you are living out of your car, so like don't let the lack of money stop you from doing that. So yeah, I guess that would be probably my biggest advice.
Yeah, and then I think that piece of advice that you said right there at the beginning, like you have everything in you to do it. It was, living on the road, but I think that that's true no matter what. I don't think that advice is limited just to the road. I think anything you want to do, if you want to start a business, if you want to have a baby, if you want to like live in a van, if you want to help orphans in some third world country, if you want to make the best chocolate bars in the world, like you have everything you need in you. So stop waiting for somebody else to give you permission to do it.
Yeah, definitely.
If people wanted to come find you on the interwebs, how would they do that? How do they get to go see all your great stories?
So on Instagram, I'm walking.into.wellness. And that's probably where you'll find most of my content, and links to other projects that I'm working on.
Okay. And I will link to that in the show notes.
Yeah.
Is there anything else?
No, for right now, that's it. I'll leave it at that.
All right. Well, thank you very much for taking a few minutes out of your day to talk to me. I love your story. And I think you're just a joy to watch. So I really appreciate you taking the time. And
thanks so much.
And I hope everybody else has enjoyed this as well. And go give Nikki a follow on the social media. She's awesome and very inspiring. And I hope that you guys tune in next week for the next rendition of this podcast and keep your life on the DL too. We've reached the end of this episode of Deliberate Living. You can find the show notes and everything we referenced over on my website, and be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts on YouTube, or sign up for email updates every time something new is published. I'll see you next time on Deliberate Living, and until then, keep your life on the DL too.